course, Senator Mike Lee from Utah and Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Those are the three that have been going. I'm telling you, the election's in 12 days. Early voting started yesterday. Election's in 12 days. Most Republicans like to vote on election day, which is the best way to do it, frankly. But the election's in 12 days. If everybody here, this is my challenge to you, find 10 people. You know 10 people, neighbors, people you go to church with, even family, friends, 10 people in West Virginia, and just get them to vote for me in that Republican primary on May 14th. If their election's a done deal, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Republican seat. If everyone in this room gets 10 people to vote for me May 14th, I'll win this thing. That's my appeal to you. Please do that. Senator Cruz has a plenty of tax, so I'm gonna pivot now. I'm gonna say this man has been a stalwart of the conservative movement for a long time. The great state of Texas is blessed to have him. His father fled communist Cuba, as my mother did, so that's his last name, Cruz. He has taken time out of his busy schedule. They're spending $100 million against that guy in Texas. He's the number one and really only target in this entire country. After Donald Trump, he's the top target of the Democrats in this entire country. Everything's coming after him. But he came here to be with us in West Virginia. Because he was another conservative there, and he needs some help, frankly. I'm going to give him the help he needs. Without further ado, please welcome to the stage my good friend, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz.
God bless West Virginia. Let me say thank you for coming out. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for fighting to save America.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight and I want to give you a word of hope. I want to give you a word of encouragement. I've got two key points. Point number one. America is in crisis. Listen, what's happening right now, this isn't normal. What is happening in Washington, I think back, it was 12 years ago the people of Texas first sent me to the Senate. When I arrived, there was such a thing as moderate Democrats. They existed. They don't exist anymore. Look, when I got there was one open socialist in the United States Senate. Bernie Sanders. Crazy Uncle Bernie, white hair sticking straight up. By the way, would it kill the guy to comb his hair? I mean, listen, he's a socialist. He could just take your comb. But back then, he would say he's a socialist, and every Democrat said, no, I'm not. I'm not what he is. They're all socialists. We spent 3 years with Bernie Sanders as the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. And every Democrat was trying to pass his socialist budget. You look at the Biden White House. Every single policy they touch is a disaster. That's actually hard to do. I mean, listen, you'd think by accident they'd get something right. I mean, if they threw darts at a wall, they would accidentally stumble on something. You got inflation out of control, cost of everything. Cost of food, Cost of healthcare, cost of electricity through the roof, cost of lumber, cost of rent. You try to get a home mortgage. Cost of gasoline.
Yeah.
Heck, it's so bad, Hunter Biden can't afford crack cocaine. But that's okay. They leave it around in little baggies in the White House. By the way, how sad is it that that's not a joke? Look, you look at crime out of control. You look at our southern border. And I got to tell you, as bad as you think our southern border is, it is worse. I spend a lot of time at our southern border. I go down there. I bring other senators down there because you don't understand until you see it firsthand. I'll go out on midnight patrol with Border Patrol agents. One time we were there, came to a stash house. They kicked it open the door of the stash house. They're bringing out traffickers, big dudes, tatted up, scary guys. Border Patrol agents are all calling over to me. They're going, Senator, Senator. I'm going, Ixnay on the editor's side. Just call me Bob. But when you see what is happening down there, it's heartbreaking. Some of y'all may have seen last year when Alejandro Mayorkas testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I took the opportunity to very gently question him.
Brian! Coming out, Brian!
I asked him, I said, Mr. Secretary, how many migrants died last year crossing illegally into this country? He said, I don't know, I have no idea. I said, of course you don't. The number was 853. That's from your own department, but you don't care enough to know that number. I asked him, how many children were brutalized by human traffickers last year? He said, I don't know. How many women were sexually assaulted last year? He said, I don't know. How many people died of drug overdoses last year? He said, I don't know. The answer to that is over 100,000. 70% of which was Chinese fentanyl flooding across our southern border. To put that in perspective, the United States lost right about 60,000 Americans in the entire Vietnam War. Last year, we lost almost twice as many to drug overdoses in 1 year. You know, I'll tell you, any good lawyer in a cross-examination, you know, you never ask a question you don't know the answer to. There was one question I asked him where his answer shocked me. I put up a poster board with pictures of colored bracelets, colored wristbands. And I asked him, I said, would you tell the committee what these wristbands are? And he said, I don't know, I have no idea. And I was utterly flabbergasted at that answer. Why is that? Because just about every illegal immigrant who crosses the border is wearing one of those wristbands. If you stand on the shore of the Rio Grande River, you will see hundreds and even thousands of those wristbands in the grass. And the colors correspond to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. I told him in response to that, I said, Mr. Secretary, you just told the American people you were utterly incompetent at your job and you don't even give a damn enough to pretend to try.
Teaching.
They did, and the Democrats threw it out because they don't care.
They don't care.
And I got to tell you, look, those colored wristbands, the going rate to cross illegally is between $3,000 and $12,000. Now, if you're from China, it's about $50,000. Most of the people crossing the border don't have $3,000 to $12,000. So almost all of them come in debt to the cartels. And understand, these cartels do not view them as human beings. They don't even view them as cattle. They view them as cargo. And what happens, they go and find the Border Patrol agents. They turn themselves in. It's not like the agents are looking for them. They find the agents and turn themselves in. And the agents say, where do you want to go? And the Biden administration puts them on a plane and puts them on a bus and sends them to every state in the union. Now, y'all might think West Virginia is not a border state. You'd be wrong. Because Joe Biden and the Democrats are flying illegal immigrants here to West Virginia. And you got teenage boys who owe thousands of dollars to the cartels, and they got to pay it back. If they don't pay it back, the cartels will murder their families. And so these teenage boys get here and they're committing crimes. They're robbing houses, they're carjacking. You look at the 6 illegal immigrants who beat up 2 New York cops just a few weeks ago. They were almost certainly working for the cartels and committing crimes to send the money back to the cartels. And I'll tell you, as bad as the boys had it, the girls had it worse. There are thousands upon thousands of teenage girls that are trapped in sex slavery. And they find themselves working in forced prostitution in the going time period is between 5 and 8 years to pay off their debt to the cartel. And I look at those wristbands and I view those as modern day leg irons. This is human slavery. And it is evil. And every Democrat in Washington is directly responsible for it.
Yeah. That's it.
Now, some of y'all might be thinking, you said you were going to encourage us. Dad, you really suck at this. But I told you I had 2 points tonight. So let me tell you my second point. West Virginia can play a critical role in turning this country around. Look, this is not an ordinary election. The stakes are, do we save our nation? And in November, number 1, we need to make sure that Donald Trump is reelected President of the United States. By the way, the nice thing, we could tell Biden that's already happened. He'd wander back to Delaware. But number 2, we need to win the Senate of the United States. And West Virginia, number 1, I'm going to make a crazy prediction. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Donald Trump is going to win the state of West Virginia. But I'm also going to make a prediction. We know that the next senator from West Virginia is going to be a Republican. Joe Manchin was the only man alive who had a chance to win as a Democrat. He ain't running. It's so clear that I think the Democrats have essentially conceded the race. I don't think they're going to spend any money. They know they're going to lose this race. We're right now 51-49 as a Democrat advantage. That means because of West Virginia, we are functionally 50-50. One more seat in another state, and we take control. Now, if I'm right, that it is 100% chance the next senator from West Virginia is a Republican, then that means the election that matters, the choice that the people of West Virginia have, is the primary 2 weeks from now. Now, why am I here? I'm here because it matters who West Virginia sends to the Senate. Listen, let me tell you my philosophy on endorsements. I support the strongest conservative who can win. Now, both matter. If you can't win, God love you, but I'm not interested. We're not playing games here. We got a country to save. So you got to have a real path to win. But have you ever noticed that the Republican primary, everyone says they're a conservative? They all beat their chest and claim that. Look, I'm a big believer, don't tell me, show me. Years ago, I used to work for John Ashcroft when he was Attorney General. He used to say, if I'm ever accused of being a Christian, I'd like for there to be enough evidence to convict me. Listen, that is powerfully true. And it is equally true of being a conservative, that if you're really a conservative, you shouldn't even have to tell people. Because you will have been in the foxholes, you will have been in the fights, and you will bear the scars. I'm here because I know Alex Mooney. I'm here because Alex is my friend, and I'm here because Alex Mooney is a strong, principled, conservative warrior. Let me ask y'all something. How many of y'all have been frustrated by Republicans in the Senate?
Yes.
I'm going to raise my hand. Look, it is maddening. You know, all of us learned in high school biology that invertebrates can't walk upright. And yet politicians disprove that every day. And if you want to know how someone's going to do the job, don't listen to what they say. Look at what they do. Look at their record. Alex has spent 10 years representing the people of West Virginia, standing and fighting, and he hasn't blinked, he hasn't faltered, he's kept his word. Look, I got to tell you, in the Senate, there are only a handful of Republicans who actually stand and fight. When the chips are down, who know what they believe and are willing to stand and fight and are willing to have the media say mean things about it. Alex will stand and fight. And I'll tell you, in the Senate, one more conservative makes an enormous difference in the Senate. You know, I gotta say, all of us are products of our family story. A big part of who every one of us is. For me, some of y'all know my dad. My dad is Pastor Rafael Cruz, and he's from Cuba. My dad's 85 years old now. He was born in Cuba, he grew up in Cuba. My father fought in the Cuban Revolution. He was imprisoned, he was tortured in Cuba as a teenager. And he came to America, he came to Texas with nothing. He had $100 in his underwear. Really nasty, by the way, don't carry money in your underwear. He couldn't speak English, and his first job was washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour. Now, if you want to know why I fight for freedom, frankly, you don't have to look any further than look to my dad. Because if you know my dad, you know that when I was a kid, I sat at his feet. And I heard tales of him and his kid sister, my tia Sonia, who also was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. I call her my tia loca, which is Spanish for my crazy aunt. And as a kid, I heard them say over and over again to me, when we lost our freedom in Cuba, I had somewhere to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? And that's another reason I'm here backing Alex. Because Alex's mom, just like my dad, came from Cuba. Alex's mom, just like my tia Loca, fought against Fidel Castro, fought against communism, and was imprisoned for doing so. And Alex's mom, just like my family, fled Cuba and came to America, and America was a beacon of hope that saved her life. So I know that Alex is not going to get wobbly. Because if he does, his mom's going to kick his ass. That's what we call accountability. And I understand it because if I get wobbly, I'm not brave enough to go home and face my dad and have him say, "What's wrong with you?" Look, I'll tell you, my grandfather, when I was growing up, he used to explain, he said, there are two parties in this country, Republicans and the communists. Now, by the way, when he was saying that in the 1970s and 80s, people thought that was exaggeration. Not anymore.
That's right.
How many of y'all have seen what's happening on college campuses?
Yeah.
Look, this is today's Democrat Party. Those crazy left-wing radicals who are bigots, they hate Israel, they are anti-Semites, and they hate America. You look at Colombia where they were chanting, and by the way, it was not a neutral chant about a two-state solution. It was, "We love Hamas." You look at what happened in Washington State where they were chanting to Jewish students, "Go back to the gas chambers." This is evil. It is evil. You look at Yale University, where when they pulled down the American flag and it hit the ground, those spoiled little snots were cheering with joy. You look at Harvard University, where they pulled the American flag down and they put up a Palestinian flag instead. And those little leftists, they are being poisoned in school by professors. And I'll tell you why it is happening. It is happening because of cultural Marxism. That's exactly what this is. Cultural Marxism, they've been indoctrinated, so the Marxists break the world into two classes, oppressors and victims. And they have decided, they have coded Jews as oppressors. And by the way, I didn't say Israelis, I said Jews. They mean every Jew on planet Earth. They have defined as an oppressor. And they have coded Palestinians as victims. And the cultural Marxist, once you put them in those categories, supports the violent revolution of the so-called victims against the so-called oppressors. That's why they are chanting. That is their ideology. It's why they celebrate October 7th. The horrific and evil atrocities that were carried out by Hamas. But I'll tell you, as we're seeing these protests, it also is illustrating the importance of leadership. Because you see faculty leaders, you see administrators that are terrified to do anything about it. Because they support the radicals. Columbia University, the Orthodox rabbi, sent out an email to all the Jewish students, said, "Go home. Go home and stay home because you are not safe, because Columbia cannot and will not protect your safety." Now let me tell you what a real president of the United States would say. A real president of the United States would say this is wrong, this is evil, and this will not stand. And any protester that is threatening the safety of other students, they should be arrested, they should be prosecuted, they should be expelled, and if they're not from America, they should be deported. And by the way, let's be clear, if you're here on a student visa and you get out and chant, "Death to America," get out and don't let the door hit you on the way out. And I gotta say, looking at this, listen, the problem is not just the radicals on the campus. The problem is not just the squad, AOC and Omar and the other coops. The problem is the so-called mainstream Democrats. It's Joe Biden who's terrified to say anything about this. It's Chuck Schumer who stood on the Senate floor and demanded that the democratically elected leader of Israel be thrown out.
He's a Jew.
It's Nancy Pelosi who said cut all the money off from Israel. These are the leaders, and by the way, Joe Biden stood side by side with AOC just a week ago when she said she was praising the anti-Semitic protesters at Yale and Columbia and NYU, and he stood there grinning because that's the base of the Democrat Party. And they are terrified. I'm told there's a joke in Jerusalem that Chuck Schumer's speech was all about the two-state solution. The two states being Michigan and Nevada. They are terrified. And so I bring it back to this race at a time when one party has gone nuts. Listen, West Virginia is not a squishy purple state that you got to have a senator who doesn't know what he believes. Donald Trump carried West Virginia by 39 points. A state like West Virginia deserves a conservative warrior like Alex Mooney. So I want to ask everyone here to come out and vote for Alex 10 times. Now, hold on. I am not advocating voter fraud. I did see a couple of reporters pull out a notepad. Oh, look at that. Calling for multiple felonies from the stage. All right, let me explain how you do that. Number one, you make sure you show up and vote. But number two, when you leave tonight, pull out your phone. Go through your contacts and text 9 other people. Text your brother. Text your next door neighbor. Text your mom. By the way, you gotta text your mom anyway.
Yeah.
And say, listen, this race matters, and I know Alex. I know who he is, I know what he believes, I've seen how he walks. And I'm here to tell you right now, if you get 9 other people to vote who wouldn't have voted otherwise, you've just voted 10 times. That is how you win this race. And that's how we turn this country around. incredibly fortunate. We're fortunate because we live in a time where the stakes are enormously high. We're not fighting over little stuff anymore. We're not fighting over whether the top marginal tax rate is 36% or 38%. Look, that matters. But the fate of the universe is not going to turn on that question. We are fighting over whether America remains a free enterprise nation or whether we collapse into socialism. We are fighting over whether the Constitution and the Bill of Rights survives or whether we lose our fundamental liberties. And I got to tell you, that is a fight worth fighting. And we are blessed because we have the opportunity to fight at a time that matters. Now, I understand a lot of folks in the media want to tell you this race can't be won. And that's part of the strategy, is discourage and demoralize you and tell you you can't make a difference. But at the end of the day, the people who are going to decide this race are the voters in West Virginia. And every one of you has a voice to say, we need warriors. This is a fight worth fighting. Liberty is worth defending. Our kids are worth defending. The Constitution is worth defending. The Bill of Rights is worth defending. West Virginia is worth defending. And America is worth defending. Thank you. God bless you.
Take a yard sign with you and get your friends to vote. God bless America.